Straight all day.
Now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques, all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called work on your game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is why you need to empower yourself. And I'm gonna explain what I mean by empowering yourself in a moment, so you can, if you think you are already empowered, you can check yourself against what I'm going to share to make sure, just to make sure. You can't be too careful. So before we get into that, first of all, a couple announcements. If you have not yet, text me to get into my daily motivation text community. Text me at my number 305-384-6894. So every day when I send that message out, you'll be receiving it. Number two, if you have not yet claimed your free copy of my book called The Mirror of Motivation, the book is all about asking yourself who you need to be as a person so you can do what you need to do and have what you want to have. I will supply the questions, you will supply the answers. Go to mirrorofmotivation.com. The book's free, just cover the shipping. That's at mirrorofmotivation.com. Number three, if you have not yet gotten your ticket to my next live event called Work on Your Game Live, it will be at a beautiful, immaculate location here in Miami, Florida. The weather will be beautiful and immaculate, and the material will be beautiful and immaculate. Again, that's at workonyourgame.live. That's where you get your ticket to the event. You can write this all off on your taxes as a business expense, because the government wants to incentivize people to start businesses. Empower yourself by starting businesses. That's why they'll reimburse you for any money you spend. For a lot of the money that you spend running your business, that's not tax advice, but it is true. So go to workonyourgame.live, get your ticket to the event. And fourth, any of you interested in being coached by me, go to workonyourgame.net/apply, APPLY, workonyourgame.net/apply. It'll take you straight to a place to schedule a call with me. There'll be a short application that you need to fill out before we get on the call. The call is completely free. We'll talk about what we need to talk about, and I'll let you know if you're a good candidate to work with us. I will tell you exactly what it looks like, how it will go, and how it will work. That's all at, again, workonyourgame.net/apply. All that said, get into the topic. Why you need to empower yourself. Now, we all know that there was a couple situations that happened over early November 2022 with Kanye West, when he got, essentially canceled by a lot of people, or let's just say dropped. They didn't really get canceled, because you can't really cancel someone who doesn't, he doesn't really have a place of employment, so there's nowhere to cancel him from. And Kyrie Irving, who can be canceled because he does have a place of employment, and he's probably, by the time you hear this, back playing. He's not back playing as of this recording, but by the time you hear this, he's probably back playing basketball after he posted something that some people found offensive, and he ended up getting suspended and all of this. Now, we know, and this is not really about them specifically, but I'm just using them as a frame of reference here, but we also all remember from a couple years back, there was the COVID jab situation. And I'm not talking about whether or not you decided to get it, but many of you who are listening to this were in a position where you didn't have a choice whether you could get it or not. Well, you did have a choice technically, but in many ways you didn't have a choice, because if you didn't get the jab, you couldn't keep your job. And without that job, you couldn't take care of your family and pay your bills. Or if you didn't get that jab, you couldn't go on the trip you needed to go to. Or if you didn't get that jab, you couldn't go to the hospital to see your significant other who was sick. Or if you didn't get that jab, you couldn't go return to campus, and you're a college student about to get your degree. So you were kind of forced to take it. Even in the NBA, there were players in the NBA who had to get that jab in order to keep playing in the games for their teams and keep making their money and taking care of their families. Nowadays, we have this whole new thing that people have called hate speech, which is not even a thing. It's actually fake. Hate speech is actually fake news, because people are allowed to be hateful and they're allowed to say it out loud if they want to. So hate speech as a concept is not really a real thing, but people have made this into a real thing in such that they're saying, well, if someone is saying something that's hateful, then we should be able to cancel, delete, not allow that person to say what they're saying. But the First Amendment actually gives people the right to be hateful if they want to. That is literally what the First Amendment grants people the right to do. So this whole concept of hate speech. And then we got also the transgender stuff, which is a person can be born with one gender, but then they can decide that they're a different gender, and now everyone has to affirm and validate and then use their preferred pronouns. Listen, fuck anybody's pronouns. That's where I stand on it. And these are many things that many people simply don't agree with, but they're kind of being forced to have to comply and go along with these things. And again, I'm giving you several examples of these things taking place. And some of you may agree with some of these things, but there are other people who don't agree with these things. And the whole point is, here's the whole point, not whether you agree with these things or not, because I've talked about all of this stuff in detail at different points, whether it be on this show, in my writing, or in live streams that I've done. So if any of these you're not aware, I will tell you where, and then you can look it up and you can find it. But here's the point here. It's not about that. It's, do you have the power, if you so chose, to push back and speak up? That's what today's episode is about. Not whether you agree with them or not, but when a topic does come up that you do not agree with. Now, you might agree with some of these, but you may not agree with all of them. Or in the future, there may be some new thing that comes up. There's always going to be a new thing. Eventually, a topic is going to come up that you disagree with, that you are not okay with, but the powers that be in your environment, whether that be your college campus, your job, your community, the people in your family, people who you know, they are going to be in alignment with it and like it. You're going to be against it. My question is, will you have the power to do anything about that? Will you have the power to speak up and push back and say, you know what, I don't agree. And even though you don't like the fact that I don't agree, I'm going to continue to not agree, and I will continue to defend my right to not agree. Will you have the power to do that? My assertion is that many people don't have that power. And in the future, many people still will not have that power, because in the past, many people have not had that power. History tends to repeat itself. So today is about why you need to empower yourself such that if and when a situation comes up, because there will be at least one that you don't agree with, that you're not feeling, and that you want to push back against, will you actually have the power to do so? Because not whether or not you disagree or not, because that's guaranteed something you're going to disagree with. But will you be able to do anything about it? That's the question. Point number one. Today's topic, once again, is why you need to empower yourself. I want you to understand the first form of empowerment. See, many people, when they think about empowerment, and you look at these situations that I just laid out, like Kanye West and Kyrie Irving are both, Kanye is an entertainer who, according to Kanye, the richest black American in history, according to what he said, that he was worth $11 billion. That was his words. So even if he did get canceled from some contracts, he probably still had a good amount of change left over. He could pay for his lunch. Kyrie Irving, he plays professional basketball, and their contracts are public records. You look it up and see how much money he makes. You look at, when I mentioned the COVID jabs, there are people who, again, went and got that jab because you had to go to your job so you could take care of your family. So you got that jab because without that jab or without that job, you couldn't take care of your family. And then we got the hate speech and transgender stuff. Who knows where that's going to go? A lot of people, when they think of empowerment in this sense, and these examples that I'm bringing up, many people first think about money. You think about tangible resources. You think about how much money do you have? Do you have any, we just think tangible resources. Do you have anything that if you did lose this job, this contract, this opportunity, this consulting agreement, could you continue without it? But I want you all to understand that the first form of empowerment is not money. The first form of empowerment is mindset. It starts in the mind, then it finds its way to your pockets, your wallet, your bank account, etc. And some people also may think that empowerment starts with your physical abilities, like your muscles and how strong you are, how fast you can run, and how much weight you can lift. No, it starts with your mindset. Those are part of the game, your physical ability, your physical capabilities, and what you have in the bank. But the mindset is the foundation of this, because how you think leads to the actions that you take, and that results in the results that you have. All right, this is the be, do, have principle in action. Being is the mindset, doing the actions that you take, and having are the results. So you may have noticed, for example, that during the Kyrie Irving situation, that many paid employees, like NBA players and sportscasters, none of them, very few of them, actually, I think we could probably say none of them initially, in the first week, when Kyrie Irving was getting raked through the coals and trashed on sports TV, and the media was coming at him, and it looked like he was about to get suspended, and then he did get suspended. All that situation took about a week. During that week, not one NBA player or TV personality came to Kyrie's defense and said, wait a minute, doesn't this guy have a right to post a link? Even if you disagree with what's in the link, doesn't he have a right to post the link? And if we're really mad, why aren't we going at the people who actually made the thing that he's linking to, or the people who are selling the thing that he's linking to, which would be the creator of the documentary that Kyrie posted a link to, and or Amazon, who was selling the documentary? Why is anybody going at them, but everybody's going at Kyrie Irving? Why didn't one person come up and say that? Now, there are 450 players in the NBA, and let's just say of 100 people who are on TV doing sportscasting, you telling me out of, let's just say 550 people, you telling me not one of them had a different opinion? I find that hard to believe. Again, just by the law of probabilities, I think at least one of them probably thought Kyrie was justified and wanted to defend Kyrie, but wasn't properly empowered to speak up and actually defend him publicly. This is the point that I'm making, and here's why I'm making this point. All of these folks who I'm referencing here, the TV guys and the NBA players, they all got plenty of money. So they were not hesitant to speak up because they would be dead broke if they said something and people disagreed with them too. See, if an NBA player spoke up and defended Kyrie Irving, hey, maybe they would get some backlash too. Maybe they would get suspended too. Maybe they would lose some opportunity too, but they wouldn't be dead broke. All right, they got money. So this is my point. This is why I said empowerment starts in the mind, it doesn't start in the pocket. See, many of you think that being empowered means if you got a certain amount of money, then you have freedom to speak up and say something. Well, I just gave you an example that proves that not to be true. A bunch of NBA players, they all got money. Look up the average NBA salary. All right, they got money. Why didn't any of them speak up and defend Kyrie Irving? It's not because they're broke. It's because empowerment is mental. It is not financial. Everybody follow what I'm saying here? Because having money is not the key to empowering yourself, folks. So any of you who doesn't have money, whatever that means to you, however you measure that, we all got different standards. Any of you who doesn't have money and think you can't be empowered because you don't have money, I'm calling bullshit on your mentality. All right, it ain't money that makes you empowered. It is mindset. You can make $1 million a year, but if you have a weak mindset, you are still a slave to the source of the money. Did everybody catch what I said there? Let me explain what I mean. No matter how much money you make, if you don't see yourself as capable of replacing that money or getting it anywhere else, or you see yourself as needing that money and you can't do without it, then you are a slave to the money. The money owns you. You don't own the money owns you. You are a slave to the paycheck or the direct deposit or however you get your money. You're a slave to it because you can't do without it. You need it more than it needs you. That makes you a slave to money. Robert Kiyosaki talked about this way back. If you have read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I don't know if he said it in the book. I don't think he used this exact term. He definitely didn't use this term. But in many of his speeches, because those of you familiar with Robert Kiyosaki, after that book came out, he became very well known. I believe he was on Oprah. I think that's where the book took off back in the late 90s. And then he did a lot of consulting and speaking gigs and guest appearances and things like that. He's done many over the years and written many books. And one of the things that I heard him say in one of his talks, this was in a live speech that he was giving. This was not in the book. But he talked about how, and he actually said this many times over the years. This is one of his, the same way that I say discipline, confidence, mental toughness. He says this. He says, you are a slave to a paycheck if you get a check every 2 weeks. Because that check owns you. Because you won't do anything that will put that check at risk. And if you are mentally, notice my wording here, if you are mentally in that position, then the check owns you. You don't own the check, it owns you. You don't own the job owns you. Because you need it more than it needs you. It can get rid of you and keep going. But if it gets rid of you, can you keep going? And Robert Kiyosaki's talked about this for years. And I mean, it's been probably 25 years since that book came out. And this is the point that I'm making here. Why, out of 450 NBA players, none of them spoke up to defend Kyrie Irving until it was after he got suspended. This is more than a week after the backlash started. Then a couple guys finally found some courage and started speaking up to defend him after they saw that social media and that they started noticing that people like myself were coming out and saying, yo, why is nobody speaking up to defend this guy? And then some of them finally started to find some courage and say, okay, hey, they did a little bit too much for Kyrie Irving. I find it hard to believe that all 450 of them felt like Kyrie was wrong for doing what he had done. Again, just by law of probability. But you can tell me what you think. Moving on to point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is why you need to empower yourself. The next way you need to empower yourself after mentally is tangibly. And I'm not talking about lifting weights. I'm talking about financially. This is the next way you empower yourself. But it starts in the mind, folks. So talk to people all the time. I have coaching programs. I sell high ticket offers. I do live events. I text with people every single day. I have programs and courses and books that I sell. So you can imagine, any of you who's a salesperson, you probably notice that, especially when you're a person who talks directly with the people in your audience, how often someone like myself, and maybe some of you who may be in a similar position as me, how often you hear people who say they want help from whatever it is that you're offering, but their problem is they don't have the money. You hear this all the time. I hear this every day. Somebody tells me how money is in the way from them doing something that they claim that they want to do. So I understand it does matter. You got to have it. If you ain't got it, you ain't got it. But understand it starts in the mind, folks. When your mind is in the right place, the money will follow you. Doesn't mean you just sit there and the money finds you. I talked about the law of attraction. Let me tell you what episode that was where I got clear on what the law of attraction is really about. So just in case any of you didn't know how the law of attraction really works, episodes 2383 and 2384, by the way. But let's talk about empowering yourself financially. This matters because when you are financially empowered, you're in a position to not need to answer to anyone if you so choose. And this is very important because, again, how many of you over the last, let's just say the last 5 years, has ever been in a situation where you wanted to do something or you wanted to not do something, but your hand was forced and you had to do the opposite of what you wanted simply because you did not have the financial empowerment to do the opposite? You were financially forced to do something that you did not want to do simply because you didn't have another option. Has any of you been in that position? Many people have been in that position at one point or another in life. I'm telling you, when you empower yourself financially, actually, many of you may have already understand this. When you're empowered financially, you don't have to do anything that you don't want to do. Any of you ever heard of the phrase, fuck you money? If you're familiar with the phrase, fuck you money, or even if you're not, let me tell you what it means. Fuck you money is exactly what it says. Is the amount of money that you have, or that you are making, or that you know you can make, that allows you to say, fuck you, to anyone who you want to say it to, and it empowers you to not need to listen to or obey another person if you decide that you don't want to. Oh, so what you're going to do, you're going to fire me if I don't go along with this idea? Oh, fuck you, fire me. All right, that's a mentality. All right, understand that it doesn't matter how much money you have. You can say that you can say that and be broke if you want to. You can say that and have $10 if you want to. You can say that and have 10 million if you want to. So fuck you money is a mindset as well. Is just based on what are your mentally, what do you see as your prospects for replacing anything you might lose when you say fuck you to another person. And it's different for different people. For some people you might need 10 grand, some people might need 10 million, some people might only need $10. Now, so now everybody knows what fuck you money means. Some of you have heard the phrase before or are familiar with it. Maybe some of you have actually used it before. But how good would it feel, everyone who's listening to this right now, how good would it feel that you could take some people in your situation right now, at work, in your community, wherever, who you want to say fuck you to, but for whatever reason you have been hesitant to do so because of what you could lose for saying that? How good would it feel if you were in a position where you could say it? If you felt like you had the resources to where you could say it, they could do whatever they want to do, and it wouldn't affect you in a negative way. The challenge for many people is that you're not in this financial position, which means you have to compromise some of your values or beliefs in order to keep that paycheck. And again, there's a reason why I told you mental empowerment comes first, because there are many people who make plenty of money. I know people and know of people who make enough money to where they have the ability to say fuck you, but they don't say fuck you. Like, I know people who make enough money that if some of you made that money, oh, you would say fuck you 100 times to somebody right now. But I know people who make that amount and they won't say fuck you. Why? Because they either do not believe or they don't know of any way they can continue making that amount of money if they lost the one source that they have to make it right now. So they're making a lot. See, this is why I just said earlier in the first point, and this is why I use NBA players as a frame of reference, because how much money they make is public note. You can look it up. That they're making plenty of money, more money than 99% of people in America, yet many of them don't believe the amount that they make is fuck you money, because what are they going to do if they're not making it? If they weren't playing basketball, what would they do? See, how could they make that? Could they make that much money? Could they make even 10% of that money outside of how they make it right now? The answer for most of them is no. And how do I know this? By deductive reasoning. because none of them was willing to speak up to defend Kyrie because they saw what was happening to him. And this is just a theory of mine. It doesn't necessarily make it true. It's just a theory. But if any of you have a different theory, feel free to share it with me. Because if you don't believe you could replace the source of your money, no matter how much it is, you can be making $1 million a year. Again, if you don't think you can make $1 million a year doing anything other than what you do right now, then you don't actually have fuck you money, because you need that one source. Now, if you got 10 sources that you make $1 million from each, then you can say fuck you to any one of them. You'll be good. But if you only got one and you don't know of no other way to make that amount, then you don't actually have fuck you monies. You get what I'm saying here? So this has nothing to do with a dollar amount, folks. That's the reason why I'm spending so much time on this. I want y'all to understand it's not about a dollar amount. This is why somebody can make a ton of money and still be a slave to their check. All right, some of you think because of how much you make, that's why you're a slave to your check. Listen, there are people making 10 times what you make who are slaves to their check because they couldn't replace it. So this is how a highly paid employee could make 10 times as much as you, yet they don't have enough to say fuck you to anybody. It is a mindset, not a dollar amount, folks. If you remember one thing from this episode, that's it. If I know I can take care of myself financially, it doesn't matter how much I'm making right now, then I got fuck you money. I can be making $10 million, but if I can't replace that 10 million, I don't have fuck you money. Everybody understand me? All right, that's why mindset comes first. That's why mindset is the foundation of all success and it's the foundation of all failure. This is why many well-paid people are slaves to a paycheck. That paycheck owns them. They couldn't make that money doing anything else. So they have no other options. When you don't have options, folks, you become a slave. You are mentally a slave to anything in which you have no other options. If that's the only thing you can do and you can't go anywhere else and you have no other alternatives, you are a slave to that situation. And when you have options and you have alternatives and you could figure it out without it, then you're not a slave. Then you have freedom. That is a mentality. That has nothing to do with how much you got. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is why you need to empower yourself. Number 3, the reason why this empowerment matters is because there are people out there who have ideas and beliefs and initiatives that go against some things that you believe that you will probably want to take a moral stand against. In other words, there are people out there who have ideas that go directly against your ideas and your beliefs. Knowing this and knowing that eventually you and these people are going to meet, you want to be in a position where you can actually take a stand against these people rather than meekly accepting whatever they're pushing because you don't feel like you are empowered to do anything about it. But if you're not in a position to do anything about it, then you have no choice but to capitulate and allow things that you don't personally believe in or that you are actually against. You have to allow those things to happen right in front of your face. Why? Because you are not empowered to do anything about it. Then what you have to do, because this happens to people all the time when they haven't properly empowered themselves ahead of the situation. And this is another key point. You want to get empowered now so that when these situations occur, because they're coming, you're in a position where you are already empowered. And again, the examples that I used at the top of this episode, some of them may hit home with you, but maybe you agree with the way things went in all of these situations. I'm here to let you know, even if you did, there's going to come a situation that you disagree with. Will you be empowered to do anything about that one? That's why you get empowered ahead of time. So when the situation occurs, you already have the posture to say, yo, I'm not going for that. I'm not okay with that. And you're okay with whatever backlash or consequences come from pushing back. This is why you got to empower yourself up front. Because when you don't empower yourself up front, then you have to compromise your values and morals in the name of receiving a paycheck or keeping a job or maintaining a relationship with another person simply because those people or those checks or those jobs have more power over you than you have over yourself. Did you hear what I just said? And again, what did we just talk about in yesterday's episode? We just talked about the concept of massive intolerance. Understand that you can't exercise massive intolerance if you are not empowered. Mentally first. When you are mentally empowered, you can be intolerant of anything you want to be intolerant of because you're going to say, I'm not standing for this. And whatever that means, let it happen. Because I'm not going for this. I don't care what you do. But you can't be intolerant of anything if you don't feel like you're empowered. And when you're not empowered, you have to compromise your morals and values just so you can keep a check or keep a job or maintain a relationship, because that check or that job or that relationship has more power over you than you have over you. So keep watching many of you should just start noticing this. You just start paying attention to what's going on in life. It doesn't matter what the topic is. It does not matter the topic. All right, today's episode is not about any specific social issue. It could be any issue because nobody agrees with everything that takes place on a massive scale in life. Nobody does. But if you keep paying attention and just start paying attention actually to the world and just the people, period. It doesn't even matter what it is. It could be a small, localized situation. If you just start noticing this, you're going to start paying attention. When you start paying attention, you're going to start noticing more and more people falling victim to this simply because they're not empowered. My goal is to make sure that you don't become a victim of it, of a lack of empowerment. Thusly, you find yourself having to compromise with things that you just are not okay with. With all that said, let me recap today's class, which is why you need to empower yourself. And this is all about having the power to push back and speak up when you see something that you simply are not okay with. Point number one, the first form of empowerment is mental. This is 80% of the job is mental empowerment. A lot of people think about money when they think about empowerment, but I'm letting you know that it's mindset first. Again, I gave you an example. There are players in the NBA who make a lot of money. More than 99% of people in America, they all make it. None of them is empowered mentally to speak up and defend Kyrie. Again, I don't think out of 450, they all thought he was wrong. I think a few of them thought he was okay with posting what he posted and he shouldn't have been suspended and media shouldn't have been going at him and no one on social media should have been attacking him. Yet none of them spoke up to defend him for an entire week. None of them did. Why? Not because they don't have money. Again, many of you thinking money is the thing is not the thing. This is when people get the wrong order of operations. You're getting the right answer to the wrong question. How many times do we talk about this here on the show? Mindset is where it starts, folks. Point number two. The next way you need to empower yourself is financially. The finances do matter. I'm not saying they don't matter, but they're not as important as mindset. It matters because when you have the finances, they put you in a position to not need to answer to anyone if you so choose. It puts you in a position of having what we call fuck you money, which means you can say fuck you to anybody you want. And that fuck you is protected by the First Amendment. And it doesn't matter how somebody else feels about it. They decide to fire you because they're a private company. They can make their own decisions. These are things that people like to say about Kyrie and Kanye. All right, let them fire you. It doesn't matter. You got the money. All right, you can say fuck you to them after they fire you too. What are they going to do? Nothing they can do about it. When you are in a position that you know you can replace whatever money you lose or that you already have money so you don't need their money, then you can say fuck you. But if you're not in that position, then guess what? You got to be quiet and compromise and allow things to happen that you may not want to happen simply because you can't afford to speak up and defend yourself. Point number three. Actually, and that means the paycheck owns you. You don't want a paycheck owning you, folks. Point number three. The reason why this empowerment matters is because there are people out there who have ideas and beliefs and initiatives to go against some of the things that you believe in. You and those people are going to meet. All right, it's going to come to a head. There's going to be a clash at some point. Will you be properly empowered to where you can push back against these folks and deal with their response? Because you can respond to them and they can respond to you. Will you be in a position where you can respond to them in such a way that it doesn't matter what they do? And the challenge for many people is that they have to compromise their values and morals just so you can keep receiving a check or keeping a job or maintaining a relationship simply because the job, check, or relationship has more power over you than you have over yourself. My job is to make sure that that does not happen to you, and therefore, here are the things you need to do. Number one, text me to get my daily motivation every day straight to your phone. My number is 305-384-6894. Number two, go get your free copy of my book, The Mirror of Motivation, by going to mirrorofmotivation.com. Number three, go to workonyourgame.live. See everything we're going to be covering at the Work on Your Game live event. Listen, if you are already listening to this show on a consistent basis, does it really matter the details of exactly what I'm going to talk about at this event? I'm going to tell you on the page. You can go see it. But really, is that really the difference between you getting a ticket or not? Really? Go to workonyourgame.live and get your damn ticket to the event. Be here for 2 full days in Miami. And if you like what you hear on this show, imagine what it's going to be like we spend 2 full days doing this live and in person. And number four, if you want to be coached by me, go to workonyourgame.net/apply. Find the time on my calendar, fill out the short application that we're going to give you after that so I know who I'm talking to when we get on the call, and we can talk about what it's going to look like to work with me directly and what it's going to take and all of that. All right, you already know what you got to do. I just gave you 4 points. Work on your game. Dre all day.